there's a quiet moment that arrives sometime after the age of 50. It doesn't knock loudly or announce itself with fanfare. It shows up in a glance at the mirror that lingers a little too long, in the way your body feels different when you rise in the morning, in the strange hush of a home that used to echo with the energy of raising children, pursuing careers, chasing time. That moment, subtle as it is, signals a shift, and if we're paying attention, it invites us to look at ourselves not just with nostalgia, but with honesty. Because aging is not only about the beautiful wisdom we gain or the peace we seek, it's also about confronting the parts of ourselves that begin to warp in the quiet, the parts no one tells you about. We often talk about the beauty of growing old, the grace, the freedom, the deeper connection with life's essence. But what we rarely speak of, what society so often masks in soft lighting and platitudes, are the ugly truths, not ugly in appearance, but ugly in behavior, in habit, in the ways we sometimes shrink, harden, or retreat into ourselves as we age. Today's video isn't here to criticize or judge. It's here to reveal with kindness, with truth, and with love. Because if we're brave enough to look at the uncomfortable things, we give ourselves the power to transform them. As the philosopher Carl Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." So let us make it conscious, these quiet, creeping habits that can subtly erode the joy, connection, and meaning we worked so hard to build in earlier chapters of life. The 12 ugly things we begin to do often without realizing it once the world grows quieter and the years stretch longer behind us than ahead. These aren't medical issues. They're not diseases or syndromes you'll read about in journals. They're deeply human responses to aging, responses that, left unchecked, can slowly steal the richness of our later years, like becoming bitter instead of better, like clinging to the past instead of embracing the present, like isolating when we most need to be seen, like letting fear of change harden into rigidity, like refusing help even when it's given in love. Perhaps you've seen these patterns in others. A friend who grows more resentful with every birthday, a parent who once laughed loudly but now only criticizes quietly, a neighbor who used to host gatherings but now keeps the curtains drawn. Or perhaps, if you're honest with yourself, you've begun to recognize a few of them in your own reflection. This video isn't about shame, it's about awareness. Because as the late Maya Angelou said so beautifully, do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better. And that's what we're here for today, to know better, so that we may do better, to see what might be quietly hurting us or those we love, so we can reclaim our power, our warmth, and our capacity to age, not just with years, but with deep, unshakable beauty. We'll explore 12 patterns over the course of this video, divided into 4 chapters, each one woven into the next, like a tapestry. We'll begin with the emotional habits that silently form in the background. Then we'll move into how they affect our relationships, our health, and finally, our sense of legacy and peace. Each part of this journey will be shared with honesty and gentleness, not as commandments but as mirrors, so that you may see yourself not with criticism but with curiosity, not with guilt but with grace. And perhaps as we explore each one, you'll feel the soft nudge of hope, the realization that it's never too late to grow in a different direction, that even now, even here, you can unlearn what no longer serves you and relearn what sets you free. So if you're over 50 or if you're someone walking beside someone who is, I invite you to stay with me, not just to hear these truths, but to sit with them, to reflect on them, and to ask not, do I do this, but what might change if I didn't? Because while aging may be inevitable, bitterness is not. Loneliness is not. Rigidity is not. You can age with softness, with depth, with beauty that deepens, not fades, but only if you're willing to do the inner work. And the inner work begins with awareness. There's something about aging that's so quietly profound, it strips away the noise. It slows the world down just enough that we begin to hear things we couldn't before. The rhythm of our breath, the whisper of regret, the creak of old thoughts we've never fully questioned. And sometimes what surfaces isn't always beautiful. It often begins innocently. A sigh that lingers longer than it should, a story from the past that keeps returning, always ending in blame, a feeling of discontent that hides beneath politeness. But over time, those quiet signals become patterns, and if we're not careful, they become the architecture of our final years. Let's look at them together now. 12 subtle, emotional habits that many people fall into as they grow older, often without realizing it. Not to judge them, but to shine light on them, because anything we can see, we can transform. Chapter 1. Holding on to resentment. It starts small. Someone hurt you years ago. Maybe it was a child who never came back to visit, a spouse who forgot something important, a friend who disappeared when you needed them most. Instead of softening, the memory hardens, and with every passing year, it takes root. But resentment isn't a fortress, it's a prison. It doesn't protect you, it isolates you, and the longer you carry it, the heavier it becomes. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened. It's about releasing yourself from the grip of what can't be changed. 2. Becoming overly critical. It's easy to see the flaws in others as we age. Their choices, their clothes, their phones, their parenting. But criticism often masks a deeper fear that the world is moving on without us, that we no longer understand it. Criticism becomes a way to feel superior when we feel invisible, but it costs us joy. It pushes others away. What if instead of criticizing, we grew curious again? What if instead of saying, they're doing it wrong, we asked, I wonder what that feels like to them? 3. Romanticizing the past. Yes, the past held beautiful things, but it also held pain, confusion, and limitation. When we idealize it, we erase both its struggles and our growth. Saying things were better back then robs the present of its sacredness. The truth is, the present moment is the only place where life still wants to meet you. 4. Withdrawing from others emotionally. Pain often teaches us to protect ourselves, but protection over time becomes isolation. We stop sharing honestly. We stop saying how we really feel. We pretend to be fine, but connection lives in vulnerability. When you shut down emotionally, you don't just lose others, you lose access to your own heart. 5. Expecting the worst. Pessimism isn't realism. It's a habit of self-preservation that slowly poisons the soul. The more you expect bad outcomes, the less room you leave for joy, for surprise, for wonder. Hope isn't naive. Hope is brave, and the people who live longest often carry a quiet hope. Not because life is easy, but because they've chosen not to be hardened by it. 6. Comparing constantly. She's healthier. He travels more. They have more visits from family. Comparison is a thief. It doesn't just steal joy, it distorts your view of your own worth. You are not meant to live anyone else's story. Your path is sacred, and your worth is not measured by what others receive, but by how deeply you've lived your truth. 7. Ruminating on regret. We all have moments we wish we could redo, words, unsaid, risks not taken, people lost. But reliving them doesn't restore them. It only drains the present. Growth comes not from replaying the past, but from honoring what it taught you and choosing differently now. 8. Refusing to ask for help. There's a kind of pride that grows with age. I've always done it myself. But independence, when turned inward too long, becomes isolation. Needing support doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. And when you let others help, you give them the gift of feeling useful, needed, connected. Number 9. Suppressing grief. Loss accumulates over time. Friends, pets, spouses, dreams. Sometimes the only way we know how to cope is to bury the sorrow deep inside. But unexpressed grief doesn't disappear. It becomes fatigue. It becomes irritability. It becomes numbness. Let yourself mourn. Speak their names. Cry when the memory comes. That's not breaking. That's healing. 10. Living on autopilot. Retirement often removes structure. Days blur. Routines fade. And we begin to live on default. Eating without joy, watching television without intention, moving without meaning. But even small rituals bring life back, lighting a candle before dinner, writing 3 things you're grateful for, walking outside for 10 minutes with no destination. You are still here. Live like it matters. 11. Ignoring inner beauty. So much attention is paid to the physical changes of aging, the wrinkles, the slowness, the gray. But what about the deepening compassion, the quiet confidence, the wisdom earned through experience? Many older adults stop celebrating themselves, but the inner light, the soul's beauty, often shines brightest in later years. Don't forget who you are beneath the skin. The world still needs that light. 12. Believing it's too late. This may be the ugliest lie of all, that growth ends, that new beginnings are only for the young. But it's not true. Some of the most powerful awakenings happen in our 60s, 70s, 80s. Some of the most impactful art, healing, laughter, and change happens after the world assumes we've peaked. You are not done. You are simply ripening, becoming more potent, more honest, more luminous. Take a breath now. Let all 12 of these truths settle gently into your awareness. Maybe one stood out, maybe several, maybe all of them whispered, "That's me, don't worry." Awareness is not judgment, it's liberation. The moment you see it, you have the power to change it. Gently, slowly, with love. If the previous part held up a mirror to help us see what's quietly happening within, then this part opens a door outward to the people around us. Because no matter where we live, in a peaceful home we've stayed in for decades, or in a small apartment tucked into the bustle of a city, one truth remains: we were never meant to walk this road alone. And yet the heartbreaking reality is that loneliness in old age rarely begins with being physically alone. More often, it begins with an emotional distance. The conversations grow shorter, the misunderstandings linger, the hugs are replaced by long, awkward silences, and perhaps, hardest of all, we begin to pull away first, often without realizing it. This withdrawal doesn't happen overnight. It's the slow result of the emotional habits we discussed in part 2. When we hold on to resentment, we shut the door on the people who once stood closest. When we criticize too often, our children stop opening up. When we live in the past, the present feels like it's never enough for us. When we don't express how we really feel, those around us stop trying to reach in. Then one day we ask ourselves, why doesn't anyone truly understand me anymore? But the truth is, they can't understand us if we've built walls too thick to see through. Maybe it started small. A son or daughter who used to call every week but stopped after being met with cold replies. A close friend who slowly faded after feeling dismissed one too many times. A spouse who now sits across from us sharing meals but not feelings. None of it came from a bad heart, but all of it came from quiet habits, of distance habits that over time build a world no one wants to enter. And so we sit with a question many elders carry silently. Why do I feel so far away from the people I love? Here's the answer. Most won't tell you, because sometimes we were the first to step back. So how do we return? First, don't wait for the other person to make the first move. Don't wait for your child to apologize. Don't wait for a friend to break the silence. Because if you're the one hearing these words today, you are the one with the light to begin. And connection, real lasting connection, doesn't require grand gestures. It just needs to be sincere. Start with a phone call, not to blame, just to ask, how are you really? Send a message to an old friend. I miss the days we used to walk and laugh. Write a small note and leave it on the kitchen table for your spouse. You're still my quiet strength. Connection doesn't need a speech. It needs a moment of eye contact, a gentle tone, a choice to respond with curiosity, not criticism. Because everyone is carrying something, and if you're the one to open the door, you've already built the first bridge. And if that still feels hard, then begin with yourself. Start journaling. Talk to yourself in the mirror each morning. Say the things you're afraid to tell anyone else. I feel lonely today. I wish I had been kinder yesterday. I miss how I used to laugh. Sometimes the path back to others starts with a single act of self-honesty. I once spoke with a woman in her 70s who said, "The day I stopped expecting my son to understand everything I felt was the day he started visiting more often." She didn't lower her expectations, she just replaced demand with openness. And from that openness, warmth returned, because when we release the need for perfection in relationships, we create space for love to show up in its realest form, not flawless but true. And let's remember, every generation carries its own burdens. Your children might not say it, but maybe they're afraid of disappointing you. Your spouse might seem distant, but maybe they're hurting too. Your quiet neighbor down the hall might be longing for someone to invite them for a walk, but they're waiting for your hello. Aging doesn't have to mean shrinking back. It can mean expanding gently outward from a place of softness, the kind of softness that comes from a life deeply lived, a heart tempered by time, and a soul that knows peace matters more than being right. When you choose to meet disconnection with compassion, not blame, you might be surprised by what comes back. The broken threads don't have to return in the exact same form, but they can return in a stronger material, mutual understanding, patience, and grace. And if today you're sitting in silence, wondering if it's too late to reconnect, please don't believe that silence is permanent. Because the deepest loneliness isn't caused by being alone. It's caused by the belief that your heart is no longer worth being reached. It is. It always is. Try today. One gesture, one kind word, one step closer. It's not weakness. It's the strength of someone who has lived long enough to know what truly matters. In the final part of this video, we'll close with a message of deep hope, a reminder that the final chapters of life are not just about slowing down, but living more honestly, more softly, and more fully than ever before. If you've stayed with me until this final part of the video, it's not just because you were curious or wanted to know the 12 ugly things. Maybe deep inside, a softer, wiser part of you is quietly whispering, "I still want to live better." Because the truth is, aging is more than the changes we see on the outside. It's also a transformation of the soul. And if no one sits down to really talk with us, we can get lost inside our own thoughts, not knowing where to begin again, wondering if anyone truly wants to listen, doubting what we can do to make these later years meaningful. But here you are, still wanting to learn, still wanting to understand yourself, still wanting to love, even if quietly, even if simply. And that alone is a miracle. People often say old age is the last chapter of life, but if you look closely, it's not an ending. It's where the deepest and most beautiful stories unfold. No one remembers a film for its opening scenes. People remember the ending where the character has faced trials, fallen, and risen again, finally returning to their truest self, fully, honestly, profoundly. Old age is the same. It doesn't ask you to do anything extraordinary. It only asks you to return to living as your true self, not to prove anything, not to struggle, but simply to be present. Present in every morning as the sun shines through your window and you wonder, how many more times will I get to see this present in every meal, not just to fill your belly, but to savor the taste and be grateful for hands that still hold a spoon. Present in every embrace with your loved ones, in every gentle word spoken, even after decades of shared life. You don't need to become anyone else. You only need to come back to yourself, the one who has weathered many storms, who has loved and lost, who has hoped and learned to stand again. It's never too late to start over. It's never too late to be loved again by children, by old friends, or by yourself. And if any part of this video has touched you, even just softly, don't be sad. that is not a sign of failure. It's a wake-up call, and every change, even the smallest, begins with a moment like this. Maybe you'll start with something simple, calling someone you've drifted from, writing down 3 things you're grateful for each day, taking 10 minutes to walk outside and breathe. Whatever it is, remember, you don't have to be perfect. Just be honest with yourself. Just be willing to soften a little. Just hold on to a space in your heart for hope. Old age doesn't steal your beauty. It just strips away the mask, so you can live simply, honestly, and deeply. And if this message resonated with you even just a little, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Type 1 if you're ready to heal and reconnect with yourself. Type 0 if you're still searching for your light but haven't given up. There is no right or wrong answer, only hearts still wanting to live more kindly. Thank you for listening. Thank you for choosing to continue. Thank you for opening your heart once more, even when life has tried to close it. I wish you peaceful evenings, gentle sleep, and days ahead that welcome you as if today were your first chance to live fully again. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hearing this. And thank you for still wanting to live beautifully, one day at a time. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the upcoming exciting videos.